theme, I think what I would like to say is, why are you here? What do you want to go home with? You know, what was your impetus to come to a clinic to learn? You know, like what's your weak link, or what's your question in your mind? Just a different way of saying, you know, what do you want to achieve on the water today? If there's any specific things that you can think back of, I'm not very good at blank. This is a good time to put your hand up and put it on the board. We can do a drill that can probably speed up your learning curve of whatever that might be. So if there's something that is sort of a nagging thing for you that you never quite figured out on your boat or whatever.
And if you're here because Auburn wouldn't stop nagging you, then you can just block him with your phone.
Anyway, so that just kind of gets your mind thinking, because we're here for you, obviously. So if there's anything that you want to achieve.
How fast or slow to do maneuvers? Like, I don't have a good sense for how fast to tack, how fast to jibe. Is it crew dependent? I feel like with less experienced crew, I'm inclined to go slower through the maneuvers. With more experienced crew, I go faster.
Okay, there's really not that many maneuvers, so let's kind of walk through one at a time and let's dissect it and analyze it, and then we're going to do it on the water later. So let's just this will only be tacking. So we're going from starboard tack on the port tack. So the philosophy here is we want to have the way I think of it is your rudder, which you're going to use to tack, is kind of your water brake. So you don't want to lose too much speed in your tack. The goal is to come out of the tack at high speed. And the best way to do it is, some of the talk I do is way back here before you tack. Obviously there's a command on board that maybe your tactician's watching the ley line, you know, 3 boat lengths to the ley line, whatever. Usually that's just talk. Normally most boats divide that up, that the skipper finally makes the call of, okay, we're tacking now. Maybe it's a wave he's going to tack on or whatever, but he'll have the, or she, as the final call. So that's the first thing, communication, so everybody knows what's going on. Okay, that's back here. And the approach, you don't change. A lot of people, oh, we're going to tack, they start pitching. Nope, we're sailing the same exact BMG we had the way back here. Make sure the boat doesn't know you're tacking. You're cool, you know. Don't let the boat speed shouldn't change at all. And the first part of the tack, I haven't cartooned it too good here, is if you're the helms person, what I don't want you to do is put the helm over and do your tack. The idea is, if you think of your arm as pressure, you want to have kind of constant pressure and your arm's getting longer. And that's going to happen the first 45 degrees of the tack. So really the tack is going to be pretty gradual the first part until you get head to wind. So it's an increasing turn. Whatever rate of that turn is, you're going to continue that rate of turn. So in other words, your arm's going to get longer and then it's going to stop at your rate of turn. So the first part of the turn is very gradual. The boat hardly knows you're turning. That's your brake. Don't put on the parking brake. Just squeeze the boat into a tack. So that's the helmsman for the first half is just going, and at head to wind, I'm going to walk through just the skipper and then we'll walk through the crew. At head to wind, the arm stays in the same place, the tiller doesn't move, it doesn't wiggle. If you're moving from one side of the boat, I don't want to see the rudder wiggling. It's going to be set in that one exact turning radius until you come out of the tack at your magic 90 degrees, straighten right out, and then we're going to go straight. But the reality is you come out maybe a couple degrees low for speed and then you come back up.
But you're saying you straighten quickly.
Yeah, you straighten quickly. Yeah. So it's a constant rate of turn until you determine that you've done your, quote, 90-degree tack, and you straighten out quickly so the boat can accelerate. Because the rudder's held over, that's your water brake. I want the boat to have no drag on the acceleration part, which is after you turn your 90 degrees and you want to start getting back up to speed. So that's kind of a walk through the driver's technique. Let's just talk about jib trimmer. So the first part of the tack, the boat's gradual. Some boats, one person can do ease one, pull the other might have 2 people. I don't care what you do, but let's just talk about what the jib wants to see to make it tap. So the idea is, I want to have the sails help the boat turn. I don't want the rudder to do the entire turn, because the rudder's drag and the sails are not compared to the rudder. Anyway, so the first part, all the jib trimmer's doing is looking at the jib. He's not easing, he's not trimming and just watching it. It's going to start, obviously luffing a little bit, luffing a little more. Pretty soon it's going to do what? It's going to backwind. So that's the timing device for the trimmer, not to do what a lot of people do, just let it go, flap, 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 noisy tack. I want kind of a silent tack. All I want to hear with your ears is the jib is going to backwind once. It's going to stay not pinned like you did on a Hope 2. That would stop the boat. That's how you stop the boat. I want to have the jib sail the boat and help turn the boat so it's not all rudder. The jib's actually like a windsurfer. It's going to help turn the boat. Anyway, so the minute it backwinds, that jib trimmer now can actually just look at the telltales. And if he does it wrong, the new lure telltales are stalled. He's too slow easy. If he's letting it go too fast, the jib's luffing to make a noise. So he has to have his eyes on the jib. At whatever rate the skipper's turning is how fast the jib is walking itself from one side of the foredeck to the other. Backwinded, yes, but kind of sailing across the foredeck, not just pinned for an air brake, but a sailing device that's actually creating lift and pulling you into the new side. And as you get to the new side, if you have the perfect world, the other hand's pulling in, and it's in, pick a number, 90% of the way in. That's your acceleration setting, and then you can grind it in to your, whatever your number is on your boat, 2 inches off the rudder, or whatever it might be, as the boat accelerates. So that'd be what the jib trimmer is doing to help the boat turn without making the rudder do all the work. So that's call it a silent tack, whatever you want to call it, but that's how to divide the duties of the two. The third part is, of course, the mainsail.
Can I ask about the jib? So
yeah, the jib.
You brought up windsurfing.
Okay.
That's how I think about sailing a lot. When you're going to tack on a windsurf, you bring the center of effort all the way back.
Right.
And that's why it seems like if you're not releasing the jib early, it's actually fighting your turn.
Yeah, so the first part, we're just sailing the boat, and the main is still working,
Right.
and it's still cleated, traveler's still to windward, or whatever, it's just whatever you had for setting. But then the jib is, if you let it go, it just creates a lot of drag. It's a soft sail, it's gonna slow the boat down. So I'm trying to use it as a forward thrust device. Even though it's luffing a little bit, it's still pulling you forward on the first part of that turn. The minute it snaps into that backwind, then we want to have it be a pull the bow to the new tack device.
So you leave it backwinded just for a little bit.
It's not I would say backwinded, yes, because it's filled with wind, but you don't just leave it pinned there. That'd be an air brake.
Yeah.
Once it gets pinned, then the rate of ease is based on the telltales, which is based on how fast they're turning. So the telltales are working the entire time from one side of the foredeck to the other. And that way the jib is pulling the bow to the new side, but it's also pulling the boat forward. And if you let it go and make it noisy, that's all drag and slowing you down. You're going to have a real low speed exit out of your tack. So that's the goal you're trying to achieve.
So your telltales are telling you when to
How fast to let it
release?
across.
Yeah. So you watch those to give you the cue.
If you're too slow, the new lure telltales are stalled.
Yeah.
You got to let it out faster because your driver's turning fast.
Okay.
If you let it go too fast, it's just going to luff. And if it luffs a lot, it's going to make noise.
Yeah.
So those are the two things you're looking at. The new lure telltale will tell you whether you're going too slow, let it out a little faster, keep that telltale flowing, so that the jib is actually sailing you to the new tack. So that's the concept you're going to work on the water today for your tacks. So anyway, step 3 is the main. Oh, go ahead.
So some of us, or I think a lot of us, have an overlapping jib, right?
Yes.
And so in order to get it around, you really kind of have to cut it free at least at some point so that the trimmer on the new side can trim it in and get it around the front of the mouth.
Free, but I'm just trying to really focus on what rate you're letting it across. It's not just let it flog around.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah.
So, let's imagine you got a boat and the jib is trimmed through the winch.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the boat starts to head up,
Yep.
and then you're slowly easing it off the winch.
Yeah, you do absolutely nothing until it snaps into that
Right.
backwind. Then you're slowly easing it off the winch. It's
Okay.
not by hand, you can't hold it. Yeah, it's
Right.
a winch. Maybe you're taking off a wind or two, depending on how many winds you had on the winch, but you got to be able to ease it.
Yeah.
But it's on the winch, so it's controlled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's not a release and lose it.
But you're not easing it all until it snaps.
It's a continuous ease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of how much wind there is.
Yeah, that's gonna help. When it's real windy, it's actually almost more important because you don't want to go into irons or something. If you have the jib flopping and the main's tight, the boat stops halfway through the tack and you really have a bad tack.
Yeah.
So it works good in light air, all wind speeds. Yeah, same concept. Yeah. Okay, step 3 is the mainsail. What do we do with that during the tack? So the first half is do nothing, but we've set up the boat with our telltales, our traveler, all our stuff, so we know exactly how we want to reset it on the new tack. So you have to, whoever the traveler guy is, main sheet guy, record in your mind exactly where the traveler is, so when you come out of the new side, you pull it to windward that same exact amount off center line, maybe it's 6 inches, whatever the number is. So as you come into the tack, I think that's what you notice on your boat, you're coming out of the tack and sailing, looking at the jib, and the main not never, but slowly, late, got pulled traveler back up, and all that time of not having the main reset is time where you're not powered up. And we're obviously going to lose some speed on the tack, even with a good tack. So getting the main back up to the powered up position is super important to accelerate. So that as soon as you get to the new tack, yeah, the jib trimmer, like we said, is maybe 90%. They're grinding that last little bit as you accelerate. But the traveler, you want to pretty quickly get that baby right back up, and so the main's powered up. Yeah. So that's kind of the 3 steps. So the driver, jib trimmer, main trimmer. Maybe some of those are the same person, but anyway.
One point, Randy, I know that over the years that we've found is that when you do that, the first part's absolutely correct, but then when you get to the other side, that helmsman's really got, so when he gets over, and the trimmer gets it in like 90%. If you go a little too far or go too quick, the issue is you didn't go too quick, then you're cranking in forever to get that jib, and that's really slow.
Right, so yeah, it's not a bat turn. We're not just putting the helm hard over. You're just saying we just get our arm to a certain position. It might be, I don't know, 30 degrees, but you can try different things, different rates of turn, and see how the driver can make the crew look bad, like he's pointing out. If you turn too sharp, yeah, things are hard to get the jib in as fast as you can turn the boat.
It's 90% the skipper.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So how long do you spend in that sort of acceleration mode where it's not fully trimmed in yet? And how do you decide how much time should I spend accelerating?
Well, if you had a boat speed indicator, you're going, let's just pick a number, you're going 7 on your old tack, you want to get back to 7,
okay.
So however long it takes to get to 7,
okay.
And then you should be fully trimmed and back on your angle. So it'll change the waves and wind,
okay.
And boat, yeah.
So usually though, like 30 seconds. I mean,
Yeah, it should be pretty quick. Yeah.
Ballpark.
Yeah, if we do everything right, you're going to find it quicker than you probably used to do.
Yeah.
That's our goal here. Have a pretty quick tack, but the main thing is don't have that real low speed in the middle of the tack, so you don't have a long acceleration, so we don't ruin the speed during the tack, so we don't have to accelerate from a real low speed. That's our whole goal here.
So part of that acceleration is your jib, your main out a little bit too. The jib and the main will be both.
Yeah, no, let's just say it was like yesterday, so we had our traveler up, pick a number, 6 inches. Mm-hmm. So when you tack over it, it's 6 inches the wrong way for the first little bit, but you're going to pull it up pretty darn quick to juice the boat up to speed. If you leave it down, you don't have a mainsail to power you up.
Okay,
but
so you get your mainsail right away, you get that.
Well, let's divide that in half. We've got 2 things on the main sheet, main traveler. So I'm only talking about the main traveler because you spent all this homework on the starboard tack of getting the main sheet perfect for all those telltales. We want to duplicate that. We don't want to rethink the wheel and be out of tune for 20 boat lengths figuring out where the main sheet should go. We already know where it should go for that wind speed. So don't touch the main sheet. The only thing you're doing is coming out of the tack, the traveler's on the wrong position, it's too low, and you squeeze it up pretty quick to accelerate. And that way when you pull it back up to that 6 inches up from center, the main sheet's perfect, jib sheet's now on the 2 inch off the spreader, whatever your number is, and the traveler's done. You don't have to rethink the wheel. You did all your tuning on the previous tack, now you've duplicated it on this tack. We don't want to spend our whole life doing that exercise we worked on yesterday of jib, mast, main, traveler, main sheet. All that's done. That's the key here. Keep it simple. Yeah.
So at least on my boat, if I'm traveled up pretty high, it takes a lot to get the traveler up to that new position. And if I'm the helmsman and the traveler adjuster, then my steering is awful as long as I'm doing that. I'm not looking at the jib. Is it okay to, as you enter the tack, let the traveler down?
No, don't do that. The traveler, well, I'm trying to tack like a windsurfer. A windsurfer, you would never let the wishbone go when you're trying to tack. You're pulling it in to make the boat turn.
Okay.
That's what your traveler is. So you got to, the mainsail, the leech of the mainsail in particular, is what's driving you up into the wind.
So
I don't want the rudder to do all the work. That's your water drag.
Got it.
So delegate. Put somebody else on that job. Yeah.
We're working on that.
Yeah, right. Don't do it all yourself. If you can't do it, that's why you have a crew. Yep.
One point, Randy, that perfect what you just talked about. If you blow it, let's say you don't quite make it, and the boat is not. You might even go into irons. Make sure you break the main. That's the quickest way to let you fall off of that board and get going again. So that's when you screw up.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Okay, so let's.
Shut the doors, guys.
Oh yeah, there you go. You're a windbreak. Yeah. Thank you.
Similar.
Okay, let's dissect a spinnaker jibe. Will be our next maneuver. So let's walk through sort of like we did on the tack. What we're trying to achieve with a jibe with a spinnaker. Start over. Not much there, a lot of words. Anyway, same deal, same wind. And who knows, let's just go from port over to starboard. So on our deal yesterday, that's 90 degrees, let's say. So there's a lot of things that go on with the driver. Let's just do the same thing. We'll talk about the driver and the sails. Obviously, the tactician, ley line's coming up, make the call, give your crew plenty of notice because they've got to move probably from their position to get the new lazy sheet all organized and ready to go. From a driver's position, you can, like Pete sort of said, you can make this jibe look good or bad based on how fast you turn. And as a driver, you're always, I want to jibe. That's your mind. That's not reality. The reality is the crew has miles of sheet to pull. You get that asymmetric from one shroud all the way around the bow to the other side. No matter how hard they're trying, it takes a lot of time to do that. But the driver can totally blow it by just turning too sharp, and there's no way that the crew can keep up with a fast turn. So the mentality of the driver is usually wrong. They want to jibe and get going again, and usually the faster you turn, the worse the jibe is sort of the bottom line. The report card at the end, as sort of like we said, I don't know how many people are watching the video on that particular one. The report card for the whole team, really, is as you come onto the new jibe, the spinnaker should fill first. The main should fill second. If that didn't happen, you got to reanalyze what went wrong with your driving, the crew, the whatever. It's usually the driver. But at any rate, that's our end result. Is going to be spinnaker's going to pop full first, main second. That's your A+ on your report card. So, how to do that? So the driver, the first part of it, a little bit like the tack, you're just sailing it down. So it's not like the boat even knows, oh wow, we're turning. So it's a gradual turn, this first part, gradual because the spinnaker trimmer's got his eyes glued to the luff of the spinnaker. Yeah, he's had it at the proper VMG position when you start, and he's been pretty stationary. But now he has to follow you, the driver. As the boat goes down, the telltales tell him what to do. So the sheet is eased based on the spinnaker luff. If you don't do anything, the leeward telltales are going to stall instantly. It's going to depower and start to not be filled out in front of the boat. We're trying to get that spinnaker to get out in the front of the boat so he can go by the forestay and be pulled in on the new side. So the trimmer has to be at a position he can see the telltales. Otherwise, you can't do it by feel. It's all visual. So the faster the driver turns, the faster he's got to ease it. So it's a coordinated effort that the trimmer is following whatever rate the skipper happens to be turning for the ease. Let it go too fast, it's going to curl and collapse. Let it go too slow, it's going to stall and lose power and kind of collapse behind the main early without getting out in front of the boat, which makes the jibe easy to pull it around. So the first part, the driver's steering slow enough so that the trimmer can follow him. As you get dead downwind, that's where the panic usually hits the driver and he wants to keep turning. But that's when he really has to kind of slow down the turn. So the turn really doesn't look like this. It actually can quite often be an extension here to however long it takes for the trimmer to get the sail from one side to the other. So it might not be that cartoon I drew. It might be whatever it takes to get the spinnaker around. It's got to slow down your turn at dead downwind, which feels totally wrong to the driver, but it's going to translate into a great jibe at the end. So the spinnaker's floating out there, and then there's a point in here, just like maybe the jib backwinded. That's your timing device. As soon as the trimmer eases, and you see the spinner kind of getting behind the blanket of the main, that's the timing where it's a verbal for the team. Trim, you know, like crazy, the new guy. So that's when the old easer takes it off the winch and releases. There's no more easy. He blows it at that point and makes sure the sheet's clean. It can fly out there. At that point, it's not this, you know, full hand over hand, full arm on the new trimmer. There's not much load on it, but you got to pull it around quickly because you're the guy that's telling the driver how to drive now. The slower you go, the longer you're going to go dead downwind and the speed's kind of bleeding off. Get the sail to the new side on the straightaway portion. Once it's on the new side, then the driver is aware of where it is, and he actually gives it a kick. As the bows turn to the new wind, he makes the wind fill the spinnaker, so the spinnaker pops full first. After the spinnaker's full, the wind starts flowing over it. Bingo! Then you've got flow that's the main. When it pops second, it's going to actually have wind to operate. If you do it the other way around, where the spinnaker's not in and you pop over there and the main's in, the main pops over, it's not doing anything. All the telltales are guaranteed stalled because it's trimmed to have the spinnaker working. So that's why spinnaker first, main second is the, you know, the golden rule here. So anyway, spinnaker first, as soon as it's around, the skipper can turn pretty quick, it'll snap it full. And I know that it's kind of, people get into a little bit of a vertigo of the steering because maybe they're going from one side to the other. I usually recommend don't move, stay in one position, and even the other little thing a driver can do, since we're really talking about the driver mostly here, the first part, is way back here. Go ahead and sight down the rear beam, wherever you're sitting, down the hatch, where it might be. Pick the White House that you're going to jibe into. When you come out of this jibe way down here, you at least have some reference of where you think 90 degrees was, and it really helps you get organized. The other thing that helps the driver is have the crew organized. In other words, they had the spinnaker set, pick a number of the clue right at the shroud, let's say on the leeward side. When the new trimmer pulls, get that clue right to the shroud again, so you duplicate the spinnaker setting as you had on the previous jibe. That way the driver's 90-degree reference will be accurate. If you're 2 feet off of your trim tight or loose, the spinnaker stalled or it's collapsing, you know, curling, and it makes it hard on the driver. So that's your teamwork deal, is to have the crew be repetitively duplicated from the previous tack jibe to the new one, and it really helps the driver get oriented so they can accelerate out of the tack jibe with the telltales flowing and all that good stuff. Yeah, question?
So should there be any need for either the driver or the trimmer to like overdo their job for a split second, like over trim to help get the sail through? Do you drive a little bit high to sail for a second?
It's going to actually be absolutely automatic if we just, our whole life is revolved around the telltales. So if the crew does what I just said, pull the clue right to, if your boat clue to the shroud, then the driver can look at the telltales and it'll tell them where to go. It won't be 90, it'll be 100 or so because you're going slow, but we don't care about that exactly. The telltales don't lie basically if the trimmer set it up right. And then as you accelerate, the parent wind will go forward because your speed, and you'll go back to your 90-degree number. Okay. So it kind of works out automatically if the trimmer follows what he had on the previous tack. Okay. But the driver, like you say, the White House is 90, so you know you're going to have to head a little high to accelerate and then come back to the White House or whatever it might be. Okay. So, a question?
I think Pete had something to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just a point here that I think, I agree with everything you do, but I think the one thing that we've learned is that the skipper really has to adapt. Once you got your system down and you got a good crew, you know what you're doing, that skipper really has to adapt to what's happening. Because stuff happens, stuff gets caught, and that skipper's kind of, I'm just going to go. No, I got to, oh, they didn't quite make it, I got to slow down. Or I mean, you got to adapt. So that's the key thing in the brain for the skipper. Yeah. The other thing real quick on your sheets, what we did with Randy is after we learned what our 90 was in a decent wind, we actually sewed in a mark on our sheets. So we know where that is. Now, we may set that, let it out a foot further from the winch, whatever, but right at the combing, we know. So when they preset something, they preset to that, and we can always reproduce that quickly, not have to eyeball it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So my other question was,
go ahead.
What is it like when you're jibing just with the jib up?
Slow.
Yeah, I know that, but we don't necessarily sail triangular courses.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So you're basically gonna just, I mean, it's almost kindergarten. It's so easy compared to what we just did.
Right.
You know, the spinnaker, there's a lot of choreography going on to make this dance work smoothly and come out properly. The jib, the slow's not a joke. I mean, you're going to be going slow. So again, you can do all the same sort of thing. Whatever you had on your jib trim on the other side, try to duplicate, come out.
But do you do it as, because the jib is so easy to manage?
Yeah, you can turn faster.
Okay,
right.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, you're
More
dead
like a
down. You're
tap.
losing speed
Yeah.
because you're not, you're not really
Right.
sailing. You're
Right.
just floating. So, yeah, you can definitely attack faster, drive faster. Yes.
Where do you typically see crew, position-wise?
Yeah. So the crew on the first half, that the trimmer has
Physical,
to be,
like,
he has to be able to see the telltale. The second guy has to see the black mark on the sheet or the clue on the shroud. So he's got to be in a position visually to do those two things. The telltale's not so important on the trimmer. That's the driver to line up the boat with the trim that's duplicated the last setting. So we don't want the trimmer to think too much on the new side. He's trying to just duplicate what you had before, because that's what makes the driver orient on what the new angle is. So if the trimmer on the new side, oh wow, the driver didn't go up to course, I'll leave the sheet out 2 feet, that screws everything up. The jib's wrong, the main's wrong, the traveler's wrong, the whole thing falls apart. So the trimmer on the, when it comes out of the jibe, should set it to that clue in the shroud, or whatever your boat is, or the black mark on your sheet. And let the driver then, that orients the driver to the new apparent wind angle.
Okay, so whatever it takes,
Yep,
regardless of, okay.
right. So I'm not trying to tell you exactly where to sit, but that's
I was
what
just
you're
curious
looking
where
at.
you've typically seen
Right, yeah.
crew, on the race course, where you've typically seen
Yeah.
people swimming.
Yeah, I like to cross sheet the spinnaker, so the spinnaker's on the windward winch, so the person can see the telltales when he's trimming. So some people use the leeward winch for both sheets, but then he's on the wrong side to see anything. So I usually X them across the cockpit for that reason, just for the visual. I'm not telling you what to do, but that'd be what I would do on most of these boats, depending on your hardware setup.
Yeah, one thing in lighter wind, a lot of times we'll send a guy forward to help get that clue around the corner.
Yeah, I would do the opposite. If it's hard for the new trimmer to get the sheet in properly, I would actually just set the other person on the foredeck on the new newer trampoline, and he can actually hand sheet it and help the guy on the winch. And I think two things there. He's not only just pulling the sheet, being an extra trimmer, but there's a little snap he can do at the end, which really helps. And that is, he's not trimming the sheet this way. When he's almost all the way in, he pulls straight down. And you pull the leech down, especially if the spinnaker had any hint of trying to twist in any shape. It really makes the thing pop, and then you got the drive. So not on the bow, not on the front beam, but on the near the shroud on the trampoline, you can actually assist the person on the winch and have two people on the sheet. You just have light air, but it's even really helpful when it's windy. Yeah.
Well, then the other thing was that if you have a screecher up, a lot of that will ease our screecher to give more room. So you don't have a tight screecher up and you're trying to get through that small gap.
Right, yeah.
We'll ease the screecher. Yeah, ease the header of the screecher.
How do you assess weight trim downwind, and what do you try to do anything at all with weight trim during the actual dive, or is that just driven by where your hardware is?
Yeah, that's all mechanics, but the weight trim is a factor when you're on the straightaway to produce your hull drag as whatever you can. The light air, you probably have to go a lot further forward than you used to, but the transom will talk to you, and the noise and the white water, you don't need a transom dragger is slow.
Yep.
The other thing is all these boats, if we had back to upwind, if the helm balance was at 0 to 1 or 2 degrees of windward helm, once you pop the chute up with that long bow spread, that big huge sail is way in the front of the boat, way ahead of the dagger board. It's creating lee helm. So the way to counteract that, if you is actually get your weight forward. It's like I don't know if everybody ever sails a Hobie 16, but if you walk forward, it gets weather helm. You walk back, it gets you actually kind of balance it. So when you stick the bows of your trimaran in, think of it as sort of like dagger boards you put way in the front of the boat to counteract the spinnaker. If you're way in the back of the boat, let's say the bows are in the air somehow, it actually accentuates that problem of the lee helm.
Okay.
So that concept works all the way up until you start running out of bow. Obviously when it's real windy, you don't want to run out of bow. But up until then, you can actually move your weight a little bit based on the light air of the transom noise and drag.
Okay.
And number two, the rudder angle.
Yeah.
If it's got a lot of lee helm and you're going in a straight line, that's bad. So if you walk forward, it'll help put the tiller back in the center of the boat and get rid of the rudder drag. So that's your weight. That's what you're thinking about for your weight position.
Would you ever raise the dagger board?
Generally no, because in the light air, you get so, when you're going slow, I'll go mathematics on you. Before anybody that does any kind of foiling knows this little simple equation. the lift of your rudder, board, foil, whatever you have, goes up by the square of your velocity. In other words, at 5 knots, let's just say your dagger board's creating 100 pounds of lift. If you go from 5 to 10 knots, you double your speed. It doesn't go to 200 pounds. What's 100 times 100? It squares it. So in other words, speed, your dagger board gets way too big when you're going fast. But most people think, oh, in light air, I'll pull the dagger board up. But that's the worst time to pull your dagger board up, because that's when you need the entire thing to keep the 3 hulls going sideways, the super draggy scenario. You want to have those narrow hulls going straight through the water, so they're only this wide instead of 25 feet or 30 feet wide. So that's why you leave your dagger board down, especially on light stuff. When it's windy, I think most of these boats, if you raise it up, which you could, it's hard to get it back down when it's windy, and that's probably detrimental. There's so much load on it.
The boat actually, we've tested that and so forth. Because with the muffin on, the boat starts not going nice and straight smooth on the hulls. It starts to, then that creates all kinds of drag.
Yeah, the sideways trimarans are really bad. Yes.
The main sheet when you jive.
Yes.
When you bring it in.
No, here, okay, I didn't, all we talked about so far, the jive was the driving. But yeah, let's talk about the main, step 3, I guess. Again, on that long port tack before you jibe, you did your homework. You set your spinnaker. We already did our homework yesterday. We know where that black mark on the sheet should be for the 90-degree jibe, so we're done with that chapter. Hopefully you graduated to knowing where to put your spinnaker now. Then we did the jib if it's up, set that to the telltales. We set the mast rotation. We set the main sheet for the top telltales. We set the traveler for the bottom telltales. We did all that homework, presumably, on that port tack before you jibe.